In this section, we're going to look at some equations that kind of look really weird, but can be reduced as a quadratic. And this is going to be really important, especially if you're going to go into trigonometry. So one thing to look at is that a quadratic equation kind of looks like this. Ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So this is a quadratic equation. Okay, and this quadratic equation, we can solve it using various methods. We can complete the square, we can use quadratic formula, whatever. Now, there's other problems that kind of look like this. For example, you might have x to the 4th power minus x squared minus 20 equals 0. So if you have something that looks like that, well, this looks kind of like a quadratic, but is it really? Well, we can try to do something called a U substitution, okay? And what this U substitution means is that I am going to try to make this reduced into this type of quadratic equation, okay? So notice that I want to make this into an x, okay? But right now I have an x squared. So what can I do? Well, I'm going to do a different variable. I'm going to let u be my middle value, x squared. So u equals x squared. Okay, so in that case, what is u squared going to be? Well, u squared is just squaring this x squared, which is going to give me x to the 4th power. Okay, so basically what I can do is I can do the substitution. Okay, so this x to the 4th power equals u squared. This is going to be u squared minus x squared. Here's x squared. That's just u. Minus 20, I didn't do anything with that, equals 0. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm substituting this so that I get a quadratic equation. Okay, and one way to really look at it, to know if it's a quadratic, a reducible quadratic, or if you can rewrite it as a quadratic, is if this is 2 times, if I multiply, if this thing from here to here is 2 times the other thing. So if I take 2 and multiply that by 2, I'm going to get a 4. So I can reduce it. And the way that you reduce it is you let the inside, the middle term, equal this u, and then your u squared is going to equal the other portion. And that's how you get this. So let's solve it. So this is very simple. One of the things that you can do is quadratic formula. Another thing that you can do is just factor this. So you can just factor it as well. So this is going to be a u, this is going to be a u. 2 numbers that multiply to get negative 20, and also add up to get negative 1. That's going to be a 5 and a 4. In this case, a 5 should be negative, so this should be negative 5, and this should be positive 4. Okay? All right, so now what we can do, here we can set both of these equal to 0. U minus 5 equal to 0. U plus 4 equal to 0. Now, if you don't feel really confident with solving quadratic equations with factoring, you can always just use a quadratic formula. Okay, so this is going to give me u equals 5 and u equals negative 4. Okay, now the question here is this the answer? Well, the answer, obviously, this is not correct because originally it was an x value. Okay, we had an x. So what was x equal to? Well, we said that u was equal to x squared. So we're going to use this thing to solve for x. So for u equals 5, we're letting u equal x squared. Well, u was equal to 5. Let's solve for x. Well, this all we got to do is just take the square root to both sides. So x is going to be equal to, and remember plus or minus 5. Oops, square root of 5. Okay, so that is my first x value. What about my other one? Well, we said still that u was equal to negative 4. That's what we got. We said that u was equal to x squared. So u was equal to negative 4 equals x squared. We're going to take the square root to both sides and then also add plus or minus. So x in this case is going to be equal to plus or minus 2i. Okay, so my answers for x are going to be positive square root of 5, negative square root of 5, positive 2i, negative 2i. Those are my solutions. Okay? To really make sure that you always plug them in and check. Okay? To save a little bit of time, we won't check them, but always check them back into the original. Okay? So what is the thing that you want to do? So let's label a couple of steps so that we can kind of have like a little recipe. So to solve quadratics in quadratic form. Okay, so the first thing that you want to look at is be sure that the first power is twice the middle power. Okay, so that's the first thing that you want to do. Okay, the second thing that you want to do, once this checks out, let u equal, whoops, let me write it like this. Let u equal the middle variable. And u squared equal the first variable. Okay, then solve as a quadratic. Okay, so those are basically the steps. Okay, so now let's do a couple of problems so that we can kind of get the gist of it. Okay, so let's say we say solve. So we're going to have x to the fourth power minus x squared minus 6 is equal to 0. Okay, so why don't you try it out first, and then we'll go ahead and do it. So you can pause the video if you want. I'll go ahead and continue this. So I'm going to let first, is this a quadratic, a reducible quadratic, a quadratic in quadratic form? So the first power, which is a 4, is this twice the middle power? In this case it is, because if I multiply this by 2, I'm going to get a 6. I'm going to get a 4. So I'm going to let u equal the middle thing, which is going to be this x squared. So u squared is going to be x to the fourth power. Okay, so this thing is going to be u squared minus u minus 6 equals 0. Okay, one thing that you can do, you can factor or use quadratic formula, whatever you like. I think factoring here would actually work. Here, two numbers that multiply to get to negative 6 and also add up to get to negative 1. In this case, it's going to be 3 and 2. Okay, and this one should be negative. So it's going to be u minus 3, u plus 2. Okay, so now we're going to solve it by setting both of them equal to 0. U minus 3 is equal to 0. U plus 2 equals to 0. So u equals 3 and u equals negative 2. Okay, so now remember, this is not the answer because we want them in terms of x. Okay, so in terms of x, we had that, that u was equal to x squared. Okay, all right, in this case, u was 3, so I'm going to say 3 is equal to x squared. Take the square root to both sides and add plus or minus. X is equal to plus or minus square root of 3. Here, same thing. I'm going to take negative 2 is equal to x squared. Since u was equal to negative 2, take the square root to both sides and add plus or minus. X is going to be equal to plus or minus I square root of 2. Okay, all right, and that's my solution for that one. Okay, so now let's try a couple more. So let's try this problem. So let's solve this. Solve x minus 4 square root of x minus 21 equals 0. Okay, so first of all, does this look like I can reduce it as a quadratic? Well, let's see. Let's take a look. So one thing that you can do is you can rewrite this square root as a rational exponent, like x to the 1/2 minus 21 equals 0. Okay, so that will let me know if it's twice the first exponent. So 1/2 times 2 will actually give me 1. So this you can reduce as a quadratic. So when you take u, I'm going to let u equal the square root of x. So u squared, and notice when I square that, it's going to go away and I just get an x. Okay? So what I'm going to have is u squared minus 4 times u minus 21 equals 0. Okay? So now let's see if I can factor this. So I want to look for two numbers that multiply to get to negative 21 and also add up to get to negative 4. Okay, in this case it's going to be 7 and 3. Since I want one to be negative, negative 7 is going to have to be negative because negative 7 times 3 will give me negative 21. Negative 7 plus 3 is going to give me negative 4. So this is going to be u minus 7 and then u plus 3. Okay. I'm going to separate both of them, so u minus 7 equals 0, and u plus 3 equals 0. Okay, so this is going to be u equals 7, and the other one's going to be u equals negative 3. Okay, all right, now we remember, we made a substitution. U was equal to square root of x. Okay, so now we got to check. So we first got u equals 7. Okay, so I'm going to plug in the u in there. Okay, so 7 is equal to the square root of x. I'm going to square both sides to get rid of the square. So x is equal to 49. Notice, we don't add plus or minus. We're not taking a square root. Okay, now my other solution was u equals negative 3. So I'm going to plug that in. Okay, so we have u equals square root of x. Negative 3 equals square root of x. Now already this should raise up a red flag. Can the square root of a number equal a negative number? No. So this actually is going to be no solution here. Now let's say you decided and you still went away and did square root of x equals negative 3, squared it, and you got x equals 9. Well, one of the things that you want to do is check this. So if you see, and if I plug in the 9 in there, you're going to get, let me write it right here, 9 minus 4 square root of 9 minus 21 equals 0. And you'll see that this is not equal to 0. Okay, so always double check these, especially with the square roots. Okay, in the next video, I'll do 2 more of these types of problems.